so folks have to obtain proof of one of the following: that they are currently or formerly foster youth, currently or formerly Pell eligible, currently or formerly WIOA youth or adult eligible. So I think that's the source of this question, was thinking about that. Folks who are currently or formerly enrolled in a Title I school, residing in a high poverty census tract, formerly incarcerated, a youth parent, or a person with disabilities. Okay. Go ahead, Anna. Oh, you're muted.
I'm so sorry.
There.
Apologize. Give me just 1 second. There we go. So the other question that came across our emails is, can a pre-apprenticeship be planned to align with a DAS apprenticeship that is still in the planning stages? Adele?
So unfortunately, the answer to this one is no. So assuming that this organization is inquiring about a pre-apprenticeship planning grant, if the target apprenticeship program that the planned pre-apprenticeship aims to partner with is not yet registered, then that application will not be eligible for funding. So the program that the pre-apprenticeship is partnering with must already be registered with DAS at the time of proposal submission to count towards meeting these grant requirements where applicable. So we say where applicable because it somewhat depends on the category of the grant, but we're assuming in answering that question that we're talking about the pre-apprenticeship planning grant. So that target apprenticeship program needs to be registered.
Well, thank you for that. Another question that came across is, do all completers need to be Opportunity Youth? If not, what is the percentage?
So eligible grant applicants must demonstrate a history of serving of at least 2 years of serving Opportunity Youth in education, employment, or workforce programs, and have demonstrated successes in supporting Opportunity Youth to access employment. An eligible program may serve a broader population than just Opportunity Youth. However, only the Opportunity Youth as defined as the target population for this grant may be funded by this grant and reported towards the performance of this grant.
Thank you. Question number 4, are for-profit entities eligible to apply for this program? I ask because the program solicitation found here provided a list of eligible applicants and states that for-profit entities are ineligible. However, the program allows some applicants to check off private for-profit as their entity type.
So just to be clear, for-profit entities are not eligible for this funding, and that section of Exhibit A is how they will be screened out.
Thank you. Question number 5, are for-profit entities allowed as subcontracts for grant funding?
So for-profit entities are not eligible to be the direct recipients of COYA funding. However, they can be subcontractors for the grant fund, and all partners should be clearly articulated both in the proposal narrative, in the outcomes and deliverables as relevant, and in the budget narrative.
Thank you so much. Question number 6, is the building trades that cannot apply or any program that includes in whole or in part a pre-apprenticeship pathway that does cover the building trades as one option, but as stated includes certifications that are recognized and grants access to any trade apprenticeship program?
So each submission for funding should be for a particular target occupation, and that target occupation must meet the sector eligibility. And occupations in the building and construction trades are not eligible for this funding. And these include the building and construction programs that are within the jurisdiction of the CAC, the council established pursuant to Labor Code Section 3070.
Thank you so much for that. On question number 7, can an organization be a sub-grantee contractor for an applicant organization applying for the Apprenticeship Implementation Opportunity Grant and independently be an applicant for the Pre-Apprenticeship Planning Grant?
So yes, it is possible that an organization could be the primary applicant on one proposal and a listed partner organization in another proposal. However, if both are awarded, eligible activities and participants served through the grant funding cannot be counted towards both grants. The activities and participants served must be unique to each grant.
Thank you. For question number 8, is a fiscal sponsored project eligible to apply while waiting a 501c3 status approval? Should the organization apply under 501c3 certified umbrella organization?
So the eligible entity types include nonprofit, community-based organizations, workforce development boards, unions, local education agencies, which includes community colleges, county offices of education, K-12, adult education, regional occupational programs, regional consortia of community college districts, apprenticeship intermediaries, and apprenticeship program sponsors.
Thank you for that. For number 9, again on eligibility, is if the COYA AP proposal goal is a formal memorandum of understanding MOU with an existing DAS registered RAP that formalizes the relationship, which will include at least the recruitment of opportunity youth in the apprenticeship and also offers the supportive resources for opportunity youth during the apprenticeship. Here, the question is, can a targeted RPA that is currently being reviewed by DAS, has not already been assigned a DAS number, and we hope for approval within a month, can we go ahead and apply?
So this is similar to a question we just addressed. So the answer is the same, which is that the apprenticeship program must be already registered and approved by DAS at the time of submission.
Thank you for that. And question number 5 is for the COYA PP grant, does the pre-apprenticeship program already need to be registered and approved by pre-apprenticeship program? Can we apply for this grant while we are in the process of becoming a registered pre-apprenticeship program? And I'll just leave it at that. That's
yeah, that's fine. For the pre-apprenticeship planning grant, organizations can be in the process of registering the pre-apprenticeship with DAS, hence planning grant, right? And applicants must identify a target occupation or occupations for which the pre-apprenticeship is training for, and a target DAS registered apprenticeship program with which the applicant plans to develop a formal MOU. And that target DAS registered apprenticeship program must already be fully registered with DAS. But the pre-apprenticeship program can be in the planning phases. So, yeah.
Thank you so much for that. On question 11, can we work with more than one opportunity youth group?
Yes, you can work with participants in more than one opportunity youth group.
Thank you. For question number 12, are we, as the program sponsored employer, eligible to apply for the COYA grant?
So we would point folks to the solicitation for proposals under Section 4. The program sponsor is eligible to apply for the COYA grant. However, just a note that for-profit entities and building trades occupations are not eligible to apply for the COYA grant.
Thank you. And we have a couple more questions on eligibility. For number 13, we would like to apply for the Planning Pre-Apprenticeship Grant for an HVAC occupation. I see there is restriction on building and construction trade programs, but that the public sector is acceptable. My question, is it acceptable to apply under this grant for pre-apprenticeship program for HVAC?
So building trades and programs serving occupations in the building and construction trades are not eligible for this funding. And these include the building and construction programs that are within the jurisdiction of the California Apprenticeship Council, the council established pursuant to Labor Code Section 37.
Thank you so much. For number 14, can an organization classified under the trade of construction apply if their pre-apprenticeship program focuses on electrical aspects of their profession? The trade is construction, however, the occupation will be electrician.
So I won't reread the same thing I just read in the previous slide, except to say that programs serving occupations in the building trades are not eligible to apply, and an electrician is considered within the construction trades and therefore the jurisdiction of the CAC.
Thank you so much. For 15, as a county office of education, are we eligible as a priority for receiving COYA grant funds? We received grant funds through another partner, which was a pre-apprenticeship sponsor.
So county offices of education are eligible to receive COYA grant funds, and funding priority will be given to organizations that have not directly received a California Apprenticeship Initiative grant for the occupation which they are applying in the COYA grant.
Thank you so much. For number 16, would we be able to serve participants from the ages of 18 to 24 only?
So apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship programs can serve a broader population, but participants served through this grant funding must fall within the target population to be served in the COYA grant, which is opportunity youth from 16 to 24 years of age.
Thanks so much. For question 17, the pre-apprenticeship implementation path lists an award floor for $500K and an amount per apprenticee of $10,000K. Does this mean that the apprenticeship program has to serve a minimum of 50 youth during the term in order to qualify?
Yes, that is correct. So for the apprenticeship implementation grant, the award amount is up to $10,000 per DAS registered apprentice and an award range of $500K to $2 million. Therefore, the minimum projected number of participants served is 50 participants.
Thank you for that. In question 18, and I noticed that IACA didn't include a clean energy, clean tech. I'm assuming that this sector would be included in the definition of sectors outside of the building trades. Is that correct?
So the sector is going to be determined by the occupation area, and we would point people towards 4.2 of the section 4.2 of the solicitation for proposals, where it states that the eligible sectors include, like for the COYA grant, include all of the IACA connected programs, and these are programs that serve occupations across all sectors of the economy except for the building trades. So examples of this include healthcare, education, advanced manufacturing, IT, public sector, transportation, and more. And also for this grant, fire trades. So programs serving occupations in the fire trades are eligible to apply for this funding. However, any new apprenticeship programs serving these occupations shall meet the conditions specified in subdivision B of Labor Code Section 3075. And the proposal must be approved by the California Apprenticeship Council. And the clean energy, clean tech occupations really can span both building trades and non-building trades occupations. Therefore, eligibility will be determined based on the occupation.
Thank you for that. Just two more questions on eligibility. So question 19, we are planning to apply for the pre-apprenticeship planning grant. Is there someone that we can speak to see if marine research technician qualifies for the apprenticeship planning grant?
So once again, the sector is, the eligibility is determined by the occupation area. And so I won't reread what I just read in the previous slide. I'll just point to the last piece, which is that currently DAS has one program registered with the occupation of marine technician, and this is considered an IACA occupation. So it would therefore fall into that first category.
Wonderful. One last question on eligibility. The organization focuses on digital art industry. Could you confirm if this qualifies as an eligible industry for the COYA grants?
Quick answer is yes. Again, I'm not going to reread what we already read. The digital art industry would be considered an IACA set of occupations.
Thank you so much. Now we have some questions on submission, and we're wondering if you could answer these and tell us, can an organization apply for both the pre-apprenticeship and the apprenticeship grants? And is the organization able to submit more than one application?
So yes, an eligible organization can apply for multiple categories of funding, but should submit separate applications for the different categories of funding. Each submission for funding should be for a particular target occupation or group of occupations.
Thank you so much for that. Question number 22, if applying for both pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship funding, should two separate applications be submitted, or should one application within two different budget sheet and summaries be submitted?
So as I just said, an eligible organization can apply for multiple categories of funding, but should submit completely separate applications for the different categories of funding.
Thank you for that. On 23, is an LEA allowed to apply for more than one planning grant if they are in different industry sectors? For example, we desire to pursue a planning grant in education. Can we also pursue a planning grant in mental and behavioral health?
So each submission for funding should be for a particular target occupation or group of occupations. And eligible organizations can apply for multiple categories of funding, but again, should submit separate applications for the different categories of funding.
Thank you for that. Another question is, we're applying for both the COYA pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship grants as we work with similar employer partners for both. The students would just be placed in different roles at the same companies. I was wondering if we could include both the applications on the same proposal and note on the exhibit where these points are only for pre-apprenticeship and others that are only for apprenticeship.
So each submission for funding should be for a particular target occupation or a group of occupations. And again, an eligible organization can apply for multiple categories of funding, but should submit separate applications for those different categories.
Thank you so much for that. Just a couple more questions on submissions. We were wondering, can an applicant apply to develop more than one RPA to support more than one occupational pathway? If yes, should you apply under one singular grant proposal or two? Thank you.
So yes, an eligible organization can apply for multiple categories of funding, but should submit separate applications for the different categories. Applicants have an option to submit a single or multiple occupations under one proposal to a single grant category. For example, an apprenticeship implementation grant, but with 3 different healthcare occupations that are all registered apprenticeships.
Thank you for that answer. Question 26, do all grant pathways need a specific occupation focus?
Yes, each submission for funding should be for a particular target occupation or group of occupations, although those occupations need to be specifically articulated. Just a general sector area without any identified occupations will not meet the requirements. And again, an eligible organization can apply for multiple categories of funding, but should submit separate applications for the different categories of funding.
Thank you for that. On question 27, may the application attachment found on the program page be submitted in either Word or PDF format? Please speak to designated formats as outlined below. The RFP does not provide format guidelines. Thank you.
So yes, either format is fine. If using the Word format, of course, be sure not to alter any aspect of the questions posed and the table formats and categories.
Thank you for that. On 28, regarding number 8 in the application process, instruction calls for emailing the exhibit documents, Form 204, supporting letters and MOUs, questions in regards to format. Do we email individual documents merged into one single PDF or combine the files into a zip folder?
It is most helpful to keep the different exhibits separate, but either file format is fine, Word or PDF. And again, if using the Word format, of course, be sure not to alter any aspect of the questions posed or the table formats and categories. And we provide both format types on our website. So either one is fine, but it is helpful to keep them separate.
Thank you for that. Question 29, do you have an approved labeling convention for documents?
No, there are currently no formal labeling conventions required for submitting documents.
Thank you for that. Number 30, can one application propose a program model which collaborates with multiple partners, each addressing different sectors or employment tracks?
So each submission for funding should be for a particular target occupation or group of occupations. And an eligible organization can apply for multiple categories of funding, but should submit separate applications for the different categories.
Thank you for that answer. We just have a couple more submission questions. So question 31, can we request support for planning multiple pre-apprenticeship programs in more than one industry or occupation in the same application? If not, can we submit more than one application for pre-apprenticeship planning grant, i.e. one for healthcare and one for education and childcare development?
So I'm at the risk of being a broken record. Hopefully we have addressed these questions thoroughly here. Each submission for funding should be for a particular target occupation or a group of occupations, and an eligible organization can apply for multiple categories of funding, but should submit separate applications for the different categories of funding.
Thank you so much for that. Just a couple more questions on submissions. Number 32, is a wet signature required for Exhibit A, or can we use digital signature?
A digital signature is sufficient for Exhibit A.
Thank you. For question 33, if we have already submitted our application, do we still need to submit a letter of intent?
The notice of intent is optional and will not preclude the acceptance of a submission.
Thank you so much. Last question on submission. I was in attendance for the first quarter meeting committee earlier this week, and the DAS deputy, yourself, Chief Burns, mentioned that the organization who wished to apply for the COYA grant may need to submit a letter of interest. If this is the case, could you please direct me to the email I need to send this letter and a date for which the notice is due?
So the notice of intent to apply should be emailed to DAS Grant Unit at dir.ca.gov by March 1st, 2024. So that has already passed. And thank you to, I'm sure, many of you on this call here today who have already submitted your letter of intent. In the email, please identify the lead organization and the category of funding that the organization intends to apply to, a simple email is sufficient, and it's helpful in the evaluation planning process. Again, the notice of intent is optional and will not preclude the acceptance of a submission.
Thank you for that. So question 35 is related to funding. Will an organization have an opportunity to request funding upfront for new hires?
So the structure of this funding, 25% of the total grant amount will be paid with the approved first quarter progress report. Then there will be quarterly reimbursement thereafter, contingent upon approved progress reports and the reimbursement of actual costs, which cannot commence until the contract is fully executed. And the final 25% of expenses must be reported, but will not be reimbursed since they are paid in the first quarter.
Thank you so much for that. Question 36, I wanted to reach out for some clarification on the COYA pre-apprenticeship grant and the COYA apprenticeship planning grant. For both of these, it seems we can only use 10% of the funds for administrative costs. I want to clarify, what would count as administrative costs? Is it only towards executive salaries, or would we be allowed to allocate more than 10% to program staff and principal investigators to test the efficiency of the project?
So if a staffing or administrative cost goes towards one of the proposal activities, it should be billed accordingly. However, if it is only the administrative overhead cost, then it must go towards administrative, which is limited to 10% of the grant.
Thank you so much for that clarification. For question 37, should the funding sustainability plan be built without including any future grant funds?
So yes, the final deliverable should include a program implementation and funding sustainability plan.
Thank you so much for that. For 38, can funding be used to pay youth and provide stipends for participants in pre-apprenticeship programs?
So for the pre-apprenticeship implementation grants, funding can be used to offer an educational stipend. So up to $6,000 of the per participant funding can be used as an educational stipend to the pre-apprentices. Applicants must articulate their plan with the educational stipend, which can be up to $6,000 per pre-apprentice. However, 100% of this funding must go to the pre-apprentices. The pre-apprenticeship program must articulate how the stipend will be fairly distributed over the duration of the pre-apprenticeship program and align with completion.
Thank you so much for that. For question 39, on pre-apprenticeship education stipend up to $6,000, can we control release of the funds in order to drive the mission of the grant to emphasize and prioritize completion of the program?
Quick answer is yes. And as we articulate here, that with the educational stipend, up to $6,000 of the per participant funding can be used as an educational stipend to the pre-apprentices, and applicants must articulate their plan with the educational stipend, which can be up to $6,000 per pre-apprentice, excuse me. However, 100% of this funding must go to the pre-apprentices. And this last sentence, I feel like, really addresses this question, which is that the pre-apprenticeship program must articulate how the stipend will be fairly distributed over the duration of the pre-apprenticeship program and align with completion.
Thank you for that. Just two more questions on funding. If awarded under the apprenticeship planning grant and we choose to build our program via MOU with an existing DAS RAP, would the award and funds be provided to our organization or to our partners with the existing RAP?
The primary applicant will be the one receiving the funding.
Thank you for that. Last question, does the stipend have to equal the program cost?
So assuming that this question is referring to the pre-apprenticeship implementation grant category, the stipend and the program cost are independent of each other. So I've just read out this section about the educational stipend, so I won't read it for a third time. But it is independent from the program cost, and the program cost can own so the program can only apply for $6,000 of per participant funding to cover program costs. And I would point people to section 5.3 of the solicitation for allowable program costs.
Thank you so much for that. Just some general questions. On page 12 of the SFP, there is a reference to certain number of guarantee spots in the gate, excuse me, certain number of guaranteed spots indicate with the RPA's MOU were fulfilled. Does this reference the original MOU submitted with the pre-apprenticeship application?
Yes. Nice when the answer is that simple.
Thank you for that. For question 43, if participants are placed in jobs and not apprenticeships, does this count towards the 60% placement metrics by 15 months?
No, it does not.
Thank you for that. So question 44, please describe the difference between partnership letters and letters of support regarding pre-apprenticeship planning grant application.
So there is no reference to a, quote, partnership letter in the COYA solicitation for proposals. However, there is a mention of letter of support in the COYA SFP, although this is not a requirement for the pre-apprenticeship planning grant. In general, a letter of support is an optional element of the pre-apprenticeship planning grant, but for those that include a letter of support, it would serve to validate the credibility of the program through a third-party testimonial. This testimony should back up the program's claims of success, as well as the promises to deliver results. The letter implies that other organizations think that the proposal has merit.
Thank you so much for that. For question 45, does the higher education include community colleges? That is listed in section 5.2 apprenticeship planning grant, COYA AP on page 10? Yes,
the meaning of higher education in this context does include the community colleges.
Thank you so much for that. So for question 46 in the application, it says that all grantees will need to demonstrate that participants are within eligible age range and obtain proof that a participant meets one of the following criteria. What is considered proof of opportunity youth eligibility?
DAS will need the legal documentation to prove that a participant meets one of the criteria, and further guidance on this will be provided to the awardees.
Thank you for that. For question 47, do you have guidelines for the elements that should be contained in a formal memorandum of understanding with an existing DAS registered RPA? What are the standard obligations for existing DAS RPAs for the CBO related to reporting, support, oversight, recruitment, training, placement, etc.? Do you have any sample of MOU of this sort?
So DAS does not have a template MOU to provide. That should be arranged between the registered apprenticeship program and the proposed program or community-based organization.
Thank you for that. Just a couple more general questions. For 48, for pre-apprenticeship programs, what are the required programmatic components or standards, if any? Are these examples of if successful proposals or program?
So a registered pre-apprenticeship is a program approved by DAS and described in the California Labor Code 3100 as a program with curriculum and training based on industry standards that is approved by one or more registered apprenticeships approved by DAS that will prepare individuals with the skills and competencies needed to enter one or more registered apprenticeships. A pre-apprenticeship program can include hands-on training to individuals in a simulated lab experience or through volunteer opportunities that accurately simulate industry and occupational conditions while observing proper supervision and safety protocols, provided that such experience and opportunities do not supplant or reduce the compensable work of paid employees. In the context of, so what I just read is for all pre-apprenticeships in California. In the context specifically of the COYA grant, the pre-apprenticeship program must meet the following requirements. It must be registered with DAS, provide a memorandum of understanding linkage with a DAS registered apprenticeship program. The program length cannot exceed 6 months, and the program should not have any paid on-the-job training as part of their program. In order to register, a program should contact the DAS team. This is the email specifically for registering a pre-apprenticeship program. So preapprenticeship@dir.ca.gov is where you can email to work to get your program registered.
Thank you so much for that. So for question 49, is the grant award dependent upon the number of pre-apprenticeship completers?
So if awarded at the grant midpoint, which would be 15 months into the 2.5-year grant performance period, the pre-apprenticeship implementation grantee for the pre-apprenticeship program should demonstrate at least one or both of the following: that a certain number of guaranteed spots indicated within the RAP's MOU were fulfilled, and or that 60% of pre-apprentices have been placed in a DAS registered apprenticeship program. If the grantee fails to meet one or both of these conditions, the second half of the grant award may be withheld.
Thank you for that. So for question 50, for the pre-apprenticeship planning grant, what if the program has a large portion of hands-on learning? For the implementation grant, you seem to be looking for programs with only instruction-led training, but pre-apprenticeship programs also include hands-on.
So a pre-apprenticeship program can include hands-on training to individuals in a simulated lab experience or through volunteer opportunities that accurately simulate industry and occupational conditions while observing proper supervision and safety protocols, provided that such experience and opportunities do not supplant or reduce the compensable work of paid employees.
Thank you for that. Just a couple more questions. 51. Are 4-year nonprofit universities eligible to apply for the COYA grant? We would like to create an apprenticeship program for pre-service teachers.
Yes, a 4-year nonprofit university would be eligible.
Thank you for that. And so for question 52, where can I find information about the steps to register with DAS?
So we have provided this link, so please go to the DAS website, dir.ca.gov/DAS/employers. And there you can find the steps.
Thank you for that. For question 53, how specific do we need to be about the occupation in the application? For example, can we identify healthcare as the industry for planning a pre-apprenticeship program, or do we need to identify a specific career in the industry, medical assistance, for example?
So on the Exhibit A form, there's a field for sector, so we do want to know the sector, and a field for target occupation, i.e. medical assistant is the example in this question, which should be filled in respectively. So each submission for funding should be for a particular target occupation. An organization can apply for multiple categories of funding, but should submit separate applications for the different categories of funding.
Thank you for that. For question 54, is this acceptable to apply this, excuse me, is it acceptable to apply for this grant, an apprenticeship program for culinary arts?
Yes.
for that. For 54, are applicants permitted to partner with subcontractors who are also listed as an eligible entity in section 4.1 for staffing needs? For instance, could a lead entity apply for the grant, utilize a portion of the funds for a position at a partnering nonprofit organization who would help recruit opportunity youth? We are wondering if this is permissible or if these agencies would need to be co-applicants.
Yes, but in this context, DAS recommends that the subcontractor is included as a partner and not as a quote co-applicant. There should be a single lead applicant that is the fiscal recipient of the grant. And if awarded, and the subcontractors and partners should be articulated in the narrative and in the budget accordingly.
Thank you for that. So for question 56, if the apprenticeship program is located in San Francisco County, for example, can apprentices living outside of the county and travel in for the program?
So the jurisdiction of apprentices is determined by the registered apprenticeship program, not by the grant.
Thank you for that. For 54, I'm reaching out to ask about how we should identify our type of organization for the planning grant. We're a nonprofit industry league, but seek to serve a registered apprenticeship program sponsors for centers in our network who will serve as employers for the RAP. Should we select private, nonprofit, or apprenticeship program sponsor?
You can check all that apply.
Thank you for that. For question 58, regarding the program length of 6 months, can these be broken down by hours for implementation grant?
No, 6 months should be the full duration of the program.
Thank you for that. Just a couple more questions. Our agency is intended to apply for a planning grant. Does DAS anticipate that these funds will be available next following year for implementation of the pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship programs that are planned for funds through the current round of funding?
So all future funding is dependent on budget allocations to fund the COYA grant. However, it is the intent of DAS to have future rounds of this funding.
Thank you for that. So just three more questions. Is there an estimated of when you will award the grants?
So our estimated, emphasis on estimated, award announcement date is April 5th, 2024. And the projected period of performance is again estimated to commence around July 1st, 2024. However, all of this is subject to organizational capacity and a fully executed contract. So these are all estimates at this point.
Thank you so much. For 61, must an organization apply for the grants sequentially if this is the first time? Are we required to apply for the planning grants before applying for the implementation grant?
You do not need to apply planning grants before applying for implementation grants.
Thank you for that. And last question, at the end of this, can we get access to your slides? Sorry, I came in late and missed it if there was a link.
So I think this was from our intro webinar, and I will just take an opportunity to say that we recorded this session today. We started the recording a little bit late, sorry about that, but we did get it recorded for all of the questions. So for those watching the recording, you didn't miss any questions, only preamble. And this came in our last information session, which was our kickoff to this grant. And that kickoff conversation, information session was recorded and is already on our website. The link is here. And all of the webinars related to this grant, which includes that intro one, the one that we're doing right now, are all recorded and are available on our website. And we won't be making the slides themselves published, but there are recordings of each of these sessions, and all of the documentation is, like I said, in the solicitation for proposals, or in the case of this Q&A that we've gone through here, every single one of these is going to be posted on our website by tomorrow. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Anna, for making this a dialogue. It's way more interesting that way. And thank you also to Anna and the DAS funding team for all of the hard work going into making this grant happen. So the next steps, how to apply, it is on our website here with the URL provided. Work with your partners and your stakeholders. And most importantly, send in your full application package to DAS Grant Unit at dir.ca.gov. And the deadline is March 15th, 2024 by 5 p.m. Pacific time. So thank you all for joining and dialing in here today. And also, of course, thank you for the incredible work that you are doing to uplift opportunity youth here in California. And we're so excited about how this grant is going to enable and empower you to do more of that great work and to hopefully bridge the great things that you're doing into pathways into pre-apprenticeships and apprenticeships, which we know are pathways that really economically lift people up. So thank you everybody for dialing in. I hope you have a great day, and we look forward to seeing all of the proposals that come for this COYA grant. Thank you.
Thank you, Adele. Thank you, everyone.